Thank you. I'm Rafael Cuesta. I'm head of innovation at TFGM, and I know most of you. We've been working for the past probably 8 months on 2 working groups, one on funding and finance, and the other one on transport and regeneration. And since we started working on this, we have produced 2 knowledge papers, which I'll wave from here. So we have produced with the working group 2 knowledge papers, just sort of establishing case studies and some sort of knowledge sharing on what we define by funding and financing and transport and regeneration. So last time we met in Warsaw, and I think also in Budapest, we were trying to attract people to the working groups. And it's been, some people have shown an interest, but we're quite a busy bunch of people. And what we think is that the best thing is to combine the 2 working groups into one, and then start focusing on subject by subject. So what we want to do is focus on funding first, because I think if you get the funding, then you can sort of move very smoothly into transport and regeneration. So the paper on funding and financing, there's 2 things to differentiate. One thing is funding, which is generating money to invest into transport infrastructure. So you create different funding streams, or you create, for example, a parking levy that allows you to get monies to then be able to invest in infrastructure. So financing is more about borrowing money and then having to pay it afterwards. So we thought, let's create a definition of what funding is and separate that from financing. So what we want to do now is focus just on funding. So what we want to do is start gathering good practices. We know that there's a lot of very good practices out there. European cities have very good practices as well. Internationally, we know that Montreal has interesting practices like the 3P proposal, which is 3 different organizations putting money together to invest in infrastructure. There's also Stockholm with the congestion charging. Talking to members here, many of your cities want to explore congestion charging. So it's things that we can learn. The good example is from Barcelona. When we did the funding and financing public transport knowledge paper, we included here case studies, and one of those was the parking levy from Nottingham. And the interesting thing is that Barcelona found it very useful, and now they're adapting it to their own needs and circumstances. And I think that is an example of how members can benefit from this. What we're doing here is because members want us to explore those subjects. So, and just seeing that Barcelona has gained a lot of knowledge from this. So it's quite a good and positive sort of result of the working group. So what we have decided is that the next step is to benchmark the funding approaches that the different cities have. We're going to issue a very simple questionnaire to all the members. In the next 3 months, we'll develop that. We'll issue the questionnaire. We're thinking of engaging a consultant to help us do the research. From that questionnaire, we would have a list of various interesting use cases. What we then will do is identify through the working groups the one that we want to explore in greater detail. Again, we'll then have telephone interviews carried out by the consultant and create a good compendium of good practices that members want to have a better understanding of. And then we will take the conclusions of that work to the Manchester meeting that takes place in November. So what we want to do as per the digitization group is focus on a piece of work that we can get our hands on, do it, and conclude it, sort of task and finish. So our first task and finish is this piece of work on funding. The working group will continue. We met yesterday, some of us, but I know there's other people interested, and will help evaluate and progress this work, but we will employ a consultant to help us with the thinking. So this is the work for the next 6 months. What next is up to you. We're keen to develop thinking and knowledge that adds value to yourselves. So we have the next six months mapped. What we need to do is for you to think, as we develop this paper, what other areas do you want to explore? Not for today, but have this in mind, get engaged more with the working group. It adds value. We saw the Barcelona experience. This is for you to develop and work with that. So it's everyone's responsibility. So that's the update. Antti, I finish. Or I'm finished. I don't know if there's any questions. Happy to take them, or later on today we can just talk separately.
So it's time for applause.